Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Asian Football Show. I am Arya at 29 United, and joining me is a very good friend of mine, Kenta Hagiwara. How are you doing, my friend?
I am still recovering from you making me watch Fukushima United on a Sunday morning not this past weekend, the weekend before. Um, that was something.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, I forced Kenta to watch a Japanese third division match at like 2 a.m. in the morning. I think it was worth every single second. Before commencing this episode, Erfan is not here, as you guys have realized. Unfortunately, he has some stuff to do. He's going to be flying to Saudi Arabia for a trip, so that'll be exciting. There'll be some exclusive content for us as well over on our Twitter, Instagram, and all that good stuff. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get started. We're going to be talking about the World Cup qualifiers, the ACL matchups. We're going to talk about the Intercontinental Cup, the U17 Asian Cup qualifiers, and of course the Under 17 Women's World Cup. So let's start with, I guess, the main thing that everyone's excited about. Just a crazy round of AFC Asian qualifiers. I'll let you start first, Kenta.
Yeah, you have groups that are a bit more defined. You look at like Group A and Group B. You kind of have an understanding of who's gonna at least be top four at this point, and then you have the mess that is Group C, where there's just one team, and then the rest. And yeah, I mean, in terms of enjoyability, this window is super fun to watch a lot of these matchups, a lot of upsets, a lot of blowouts, and a lot of really close matches as well. So yeah, let's
So
let's go over them.
yeah, let's go over Group A. I guess we'll start with the first match day, which was Iran against North Korea. A game that lots of Iranian fans were kind of confused because we haven't really seen North Korea play in the past few, I guess, years. I mean, they've had that ban. They've obviously just come back from that, and they've actually managed to held their own. I think that the best result they've had was, well, not best result, but the most impressive result is they nearly lost to a Japan side, which was only a 1-0 loss, which I think, especially in today's world where Japan is just scoring 5-6 goals a game, I think it's very impressive for them. So going into that game, I was expecting a closer game. And the first half was freaking fantastic. We scored three goals, three unanswered goals, which I thought, hey, we're gonna smash this team 6-7-0 at this point, but with how we were playing. They weren't in it at all until Mr. Shoja Kharizadeh decided, hey man, let's ruin this moment that we have and let's get a red card. Deservedly so. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, it's not a red card. It's a red card. It was the last man. It's a red card. Kharizadeh, I think this is like his second or third card of the red card of the year, which I'm gonna talk about this a little bit later, but there's a big lack of discipline in this team Melli side. Nevertheless, they scored two goals. Taremi's own goal, which I guess not around the topic of Mehdi Taremi, he had a masterclass, a disaster. Like what am I supposed to call that? He scored an own goal, missed a penalty, and had three assists. It's like I don't know if he played well or not. It's like, yeah, he played well, but he also kind of screwed us over in some other points. But anyways, yeah. Ghaidi with a good goal. I've tweeted about Mehdi Ghaidi. I think this guy is a new man on the Amir Ghaninoui, and Mohamed Mohebi as well with two goals. So close effort from North Korea there. Unfortunately, well, not just no, thank God. And from my perspective, thank God they didn't come back. But I guess if you were neutral, that was a very fun match to watch. And the other games in that group, we've had Qatar against Uzbekistan, which this was Uzbekistan's first loss of the World Cup qualifying campaign. Again, was it Fazulayev who scored a brace for them? Wasn't enough. Almoez Ali, I think, is the top scorer right now of these qualifying rounds. Uh, Topped off with what was it, like 102nd minute, I believe it was, winner from Lucas Mendez to make Qatar win the game and kind of bring them back into the table after a disaster second round. Um, so that's that. And then the last game of Group A was the UAE against Kyrgyzstan. Not much to really say. I think UAE have been very, very good. We're going to talk about this later on. They haven't conceded in this round. They haven't conceded. That's number one. And number two, they've just been very good. Just completely shattering Kyrgyzstan 3-0. Fabio Lima, we're going to talk about him again later on, has just been absolutely fantastic. So I'll let Kenta go through groups B and C. I think I've spoken enough.
All right, we have Group B, uh, or the first match day of Group B. With before we go on to the second match day here, you have Kuwait hosted South Korea first. In Group B, a 3-1 win for the South Korean side there on match day 5. South Korea, honestly, they've still looked really good. I know um, in terms of the Pod A teams. There's some questions as to whether uh, South Korea or Iran are that second best team in AFC right now, and that's been questioned a lot. But South Korea looked good in that match. They dominated possession. They outshot their opposition. They scored the goals they needed to, despite uh, I think it was Mohamed Daham that scored a goal to kind of cut the deficit in half, and just kind of early in the second half they found the late goal to kind of put the match away, maintaining that 2-goal lead for pretty much the entire match, and that's all you can ask for, especially on the road. Um, Iraq, a 0-0 draw against Jordan. There wasn't a ton in that match, if I remember correctly. They both had chances. Neither of them really put the ball on goal. I don't remember. I think Iraq's goalkeeper had like 4 saves, if I remember correctly, but it wasn't particularly that impressive by either team. A defensive match, pretty much throughout the entirety of the match. Neither of them were really able to move the ball around consistently. You look at the passing accuracies; they're pretty low. A lot of fouls committed. A really physical match, kind of what you would expect between Iraq and Jordan in a group stage match like this. And a 0-0 draw. I think both teams are happy with it. They want more, but when you're sitting at the cusp of the top two in World Cup qualification, a draw, you'll take it. You'll take it, especially against the opposition. You just can't afford to lose in that situation. So I think both teams are gonna be okay with that result there. And then the final match of that was Oman, I think, right? Oman beating Palestine 1-0 on the match day number 5 there. A late winner. It was a pretty close match if I remember correctly. But Oman found a winner in the 83rd minute through El Ghassani. And they were able to secure all 3 points at home. A big win for them as they kind of jump into that top 4 conversation.
Moving on, let's move on to Group C. Let's kind of do this together, right? So there was that Australia Saudi Arabia game, which was very early in the morning for me. I know you stayed up to watch that, and you expressed how much you regretted doing so. So
Moves fast. Look, the match kicked off at like 4 a.m. and I was debating whether like to stay up for it or like sleep early, and I decided to stay up for it. Just such a boring game, man. Australia had clearly the better quantity of chances, the better quality of chances. It was like 14-4 shots, 13-3. It was somewhere around that. It was a pretty one-sided match, but neither of them put the ball on goal. Like neither of them tested each other's goalkeepers. It was so boring. So boring. Very disappointing because that was the first match where Henry Rivard, right, came back as the manager for Saudi Arabia. It's a chance for him to kind of to show what he can do with the Saudi Arabian team. Because you moved on from your manager. You'd like to see some change, and it just didn't happen. Like it was just a snooze fest. Um,
if I'm not mistaken, I think there was a goal in that game that got called off, right? Am I mistaken here?
yeah, there was in second half stoppage time, late in the match.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a goal, and then it got called off. Yeah, due to offsides, if I remember correctly. Um, it was by Saudi Arabia too, which would have been against the run of form and everything that happened in that match. But yeah, it was caught off. So
Next up,
uh,
China played against Bahrain. China, which has been criticized a lot, not only on this podcast, but I think in the Asian football realm. But they're sort of back here. I mean, they had that late 91st minute winner, which I think Bahrain scored. Then that goal got disallowed, and then China scored right after, right? If I'm not mistaken, I think that's what happened. So it's unfortunate for Bahrain, but I mean, hey, that's just prime AFC shithousery right there. China scoring, and China's sort of back. I mean, I mean, I know they're like last in the group. We're gonna talk about Group C later. Kenta's gonna go crazy on that group later on. But um, what I'm trying to say is that they're back. They're still alive, which wouldn't have been said in the last round of qualifiers. Not really much else to add for that game. I think after that we got the Japan and Indonesia game, if I'm not mistaken, which was the day after. Just as standard old Japan hammering Indonesia 4-0. Just a great game from them. I'm gonna let you take the spot here because it's your national team.
Yeah, it's good to see Sugawara score a goal. He's always been a kind of a fun player to watch with that national team, so it's always good to see him to score. There's not a ton to be said, right? A 4-0 win there's not just not a ton to be said. I did think for the first 30 minutes Indonesia before they I think that own goal by Hübner in like the 30th minute, 35th minute, somewhere around that range. Before that first goal went in, they held their own, but it started to slowly kind of crumble apart after one goal. You start to open up the game in the second half, and then Hidemasa Morita finds like Sugawara finds a banger of a goal from just a weird angle, and all of a sudden you're sitting 4-0 down at home, and it felt like at that point they weren't even chasing to to find a goal. They were just trying to kind of stop the bleeding, so they sat back even more, which is kind of what you have to do when goal differential comes into play, especially with Group C right now. So, um, not an unexpected result, but it felt like they were doing well until that first goal went in, and it just started to really crumble for them.
Moving on to the second match day, which was also very, very interesting. Again, starting off with Group A, we're going to go with North Korea against Uzbekistan. And you kind of have to feel bad for North Korea here because they're probably like the best, worst team, if that kind of makes sense, because they always come so close of getting even just a point, and they just don't have that extra push. I mean, they were very close of getting something out of this. I think they missed the penalty, which I think should be talked about. I think they've missed like 3 penalties so far, which is very concerning because I saw a stat where like if they had scored those penalties, they would have I don't know how many points exactly, but they would have been a lot better than they are as of now. But again, Abuzbek Fazulayev, which I said scored all 3 goals of Uzbekistan in this qualifying round, which is very interesting. A very very bright young star, and I really do hope this guy gets the move that he deserves out of CSKA Moscow. But anyways, that's a conversation for another day. Yeah, that was a 1-0 win for Uzbekistan, bringing them 13 points in the table, second, just below Iran. And speaking of Iran, let's talk about that Kyrgyzstan game. I don't know if I really want to say what I think because I think the Asian football show would cease to exist if I go all in genuinely. But it's just, I don't understand how you can have 2 back-to-back games where you're genuinely the best team in the world in that first half. Like, our first half was impeccable. We scored 2 goals. Very beautiful. Well, the Taremi goal wasn't a beautiful goal, but it was a good, like, I mean, he scored a goal. That Hardani goal was very good. A beautiful pass by Sardar Azmoun to God knows why, but our right back was playing striker for a second, dribbled the defender, and with a very beautiful finish. Like that's the type of football I want us to play all the time. Everything went well, and then in the second half, the team's just like, nope, we're gonna make this more difficult on ourselves, and they concede 2 goals. I mean, albeit one of them being a penalty, but it's I think it's now clear that Iran has a very very big problem going into this World Cup because we're pretty much qualified, right? Um, Pretty much qualified at this point, unless things go very very wrong, but I don't think it'll happen. There's a big problem, and it's our defense. And it's funny because we're known for being good in defense, at least in the past few years. And Ghalinui has us playing a lot more attacking football, which is good, but he's getting the defense all wrong. He's calling up the wrong players. The players are not performing. It has to be fixed because you can't go in the World Cup with that defense. We're not going to be doing good. It's unexcusable to be conceding 4 goals to Kyrgyzstan and North Korea, which, with all due respect, they really have tried their best, but as a top 18, 19 nation in the world to be conceding 4 goals to teams that are like in the hundreds in the FIFA rankings is a big, big problem. We're gonna have to see what happens in March, but I've had a very strong criticism of Erfan Hoseiny. A lot of people say my criticism is over exaggerated, but we'll see in March. And Kenta being one of them, by the way. But anyways, that's that. Just happy we got the 3 points at this point. And yeah, there's a lot of talking points, which again we'll get in a bit. So that was for Group A. Am I missing another game? Yes, I am. And then the UAE just absolutely smashing Qatar 5-0. I don't know what the hell is going on with Qatar. Like they're getting destroyed in every single game they're playing. Um, Fabio Lima with just 4 goals is just the guy's incredible. He's been incredible. So that's pretty much it. 5-0. I'd like to see what Kenta thinks about these 3 matchups.
Yeah, Fabio, what a match for Fabio Lima. What a match. I know 2 of them are PK goals. People are gonna say, "Oh, that's the softest 4 goals someone scored." I don't care. He scored 4 goals in a single qualifying match. What more do you want from a player, right? Fantastic, fantastic result. And I back to Qatar. I just don't understand why you're back in that back three system after how well that back four system served you at the Asian Cup. They were one of the best defensive units at the Asian Cup. Like they conceded 5 goals in 7 matches. And they're in here, they've conceded 17 goals in 6 matches. The system doesn't make sense. There's clearly a lack of cohesion in that unit. Big issue because even if Qatar end up qualifying, unless they make changes, they're gonna get shredded by any team at the World Cup. This backline just is not good enough. It's not and I think it's different from what Iran's facing, where I think it's a mentality issue with Iran because they go up a couple goals and then they just let off the gas. And then you're letting teams like Kyrgyzstan, like North Korea, have an opportunity to come back and to win, to make matches interesting. Where you're seeing teams like South Korea or Japan, when they are up significantly, just keep their foot on the pedal, right? Keep going. They don't let go. They don't let teams creep their way back into matches. So for me with Iran, I don't think it's an issue of their back line. I just think it's an issue of like just keep going. Just keep going. Go find a fourth. If you're up 3-0, find a fourth, find a fifth. Instead of trying to be complacent and saying, "Oh, we're up 2-0, we're just gonna just sit back and try to play the game out in the second half," and then all of a sudden you concede 2 goals to Joel Kojo, fantastic player by the way, and then now you're tied 2-2, and you have to find a winner all of a sudden on the road, which luckily you did. But if you don't, all of a sudden it's a incredibly disappointing result, being up 2-0 on the road against Kyrgyzstan, which no disrespect to Kyrgyzstan, but Iran should be comfortably winning that match. So I see that more as like a mentality issue than anything else, to be completely honest.
I think it's a mix of both. I think the defense is not good. I think it's also the mentality part. I mean, Osmoon said it after an interview. He said the team is very ironic that it's coming from Osmoon himself. But anyways, that's another conversation for another day. It's just that like it's just imagining the fact that you're going up 3-0 and 2-0 in 2 consecutive games, and then you let that opposition come back is just unimaginable. I haven't seen Team Melli this bad in very long time, and it's just every game where I'm like, okay, I don't know, he's learned from his mistakes. And after that 4-1 win against Qatar, I'm like, okay, he's starting to understand. Nope, it was just, I guess Qatar was just really bad on that day. Um, it's it needs to get fixed. It really needs to get fixed, and I pray that he gets it right in March. We're gonna see what happens in March. If the same issue happens against the UAE and against Uzbekistan, then we're gonna have a serious conversation of if he's still the right manager for this national team. Um, but he's been let off the hook way too much. Um, he's been constantly bailed out by the team, Osman and Taremi especially. Um, it's unfortunate because I know we're a lot better than this, and I think everyone knows how good Iran can actually be if they're playing serious, right? We've seen it in the past. Anyways, so that's that for Group A. We've spent a lot of time on Group A. Group B would be South Korea against Palestine. A huge result for Palestine. 1-1 against quote unquote the second best team in Asia, which I don't agree with that whatsoever. I hope this result has made your idea change about what things are going on, Kenta. Anyways, 1-1. Yeah, it wasn't a good performance by South Korea. I mean, Heung-min Son had to bail out the team. They just didn't seem to really be there. If that kind of makes sense. Yeah, they scored a goal 4 minutes after, like it was like a wake up call. But after that, they're just like, okay, well, that's it. Um, and then the other games would be Iraq against Oman. Iraq getting a standard, like you said, just like that grindy 1-0 win that you got to like push yourself over to get it. And then Kuwait against Jordan, a very disappointing few games for Jordan. I think they've shown that they're a lot better than what they are. Credit to Kuwait, they got that equalizer. But as things stands for Jordan, I mean they're still on 9 points. It's not like they're like in trouble, but they could be a lot more comfortable than they are at the moment. What do you think?
Yeah, you'd like to see after Jordan, after that first draw against Iraq, which I think is a much more important result than a 1-1 draw at Kuwait, right? To kind of bounce back and to get 3 points, and you just didn't see that. Um, it was a pretty even match, honestly. I thought Jordan would be a lot more aggressive in terms of finding that final product, and they just weren't. They found that first goal. It felt a bit complacent at times. Obviously, Kuwait were able to find that equalizer in the second half, and you're looking at a 1-1 draw against Kuwait, where Jordan, if they kind of needed to win there to keep up with Iraq for that automatic qualification spot. I don't think their chances in terms of qualifying for at least the fourth round are in jeopardy by any means. I think that's at this point pretty much a lock. I do wonder if they're gonna have a shot at even finishing top two at this point. Not just because it was one result, but it just wasn't a great result as a whole. And I look at the rest of the schedule that Jordan have, it's not the greatest. They're still playing in South Korea. I mean, that's probably the toughest match they're gonna have. And playing at Oman, and then obviously they host Iraq. So I mean, if there's more than a 3 point gap before they host Iraq, it's over. It's going to the fourth round. So something to keep an eye on with this group. In terms of the other two matches in the group, South Korea, Palestine, I don't know what it is about Palestine. I don't know. They've had their number, South Korea's number, two draws, very similar matches across the board on both. I know it's a 1-1 draw compared to a 0-0 draw, but they felt very similar. South Korea maintaining possession, getting the better of the chances, and it still ends in a draw. I still have South Korea as my second team. I know you're upset about that. I know. I know. I know. I still have them as my second team in AFC. Um, and I'm not particularly worried about them in terms of World Cup qualification. If that's where we're headed to next, I think they're still a lock for top two in Group B.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah, of course.
yeah,
I don't
but
think anyone's denying that.
but yeah, Palestine's had their number. They've had their number. Two matches, two draws. Uh, but we also seen this Palestine team. They come off that draw and then they just lose. So you would like to see this Palestine team take the result into March and like actually make good of it, use it as momentum to actually get a win, get some points, and try to battle for top four at least. Because right now, like they have what 3 wins, 3 draws, and 3 losses. I mean, that's and two of them are against South Korea. If you're drawing against South Korea both times, you should be getting more points than three after 6 matches. Because those are very impressive results. And then everything else is like underwhelming when you consider the results you're getting against the Pod 18 or the
Maybe
Pod
that's
1
like
team.
maybe that's a sign of good things to come from Palestine as well. You can also look at that perspective. Moving on to Group C now. Japan beating China 3-1. A very not controversial match, I would say, but it was something. We've had that one fan just jump in the middle of the stadium. We've had the booing of the national anthem, just things that you don't want to see. And I hope it doesn't happen again. I mean, there's the politics and all into it, which we're not going to get into. But again, just like the Indonesia game, just a game that Japan went there, won the game, and that's it. Just a win, just a game that was good. It was a pretty rotated squad. Kokiogawa getting a brace, which was very good for him. I know some people aren't really for him being in a national team, and I know others are. I don't know where you stand in that, Kenta. It would be interesting to know your opinion. We'll get into that in a second. And then the other games were, I'll put this one, I'll talk about this one in a bit. We'll talk about the Bahrain and Australia game. which, oh, Bahrain were so close, man. Inches away. I mean, listen, a 2-2 draw is still very good against Australia. It's not a bad thing at all. But they could have had those 3 points and just really screw over Australia. But hey, kudos to Australia. They came back in the end, 2-2, which I mean it's not a good result for them in any way, shape, or form. But at least they didn't lose. And this is for me the match of the whole like both match days, I guess you can say. Indonesia against Saudi Arabia. Indonesia won 2-0. 2-0. And it wasn't like those EAFC type games where like they got one shot on goal and they scored it. No, they were genuinely the better team throughout the whole game. We're gonna talk about Saudi Arabia in a bit, but I mean, shout out Marcelino Ferdinand, man. What a freaking game. That was I was watching that with a smile on my face. And if you're a Saudi fan, I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. It's all I can really say. Yeah. What do you think about these games, Kenta? Because I know you have a lot more to say than I do.
Indonesia, Saudi Arabia. Let's get that one out of the way. Indonesia took 23 shots and three of them were on target. We've talked about I think in the past about like shot conversion and like this is so bad what we're seeing from Saudi Arabia in terms of their because they're creating a ton of chances and they're just not finishing any of them. Any of them. It's really bad. It's really bad. I don't know what the solution is. You created 23 shots, so it's not an issue of creating. It's you just got to be more clinical and in Indonesia were right. They took care of their chances. They had a couple big chances. They put some of them away, and all of a sudden you're looking at this Indonesian side right in the thick of things. In Saudi Arabia, depending on how the next four matches go, alongside Australia and like the two teams that were supposed to be competing for top two, they could be the two teams that don't even qualify for round four. I mean, like this group C is just pure and utter chaos, which is always fun for someone like me who is just sitting at the top with Japan. Bahrain and Australia. Yeah, Australia. I mean, Bahrain took care of business in Australia earlier, right? They won 1-0 in Australia. So I thought it was going to be another win. Australia able to find that winner in the 6th minute of stoppage time. Still not a good result for them. I don't know what Popovich is, what's going through his head at this point. Tony Popovich. I mean, what do you do from here? It's you you managed barely to scrape away with a draw at Bahrain because of a 1st minute goal and a 6th minute in stoppage time goal. I mean that's just for full 90 minutes you were just
Which,
completely
by the
outclassed.
way, if I can add something to that has to be some sort of record, right? Like the earliest goal and then like the latest goal, like that. Surely that has to be some sort of record because I don't think I've ever seen
Especially with the
something like
same
that.
player, it
Yeah,
probably
and it's
has
the
to be
same player.
something where it's like the
Exactly.
most amount of minutes, not including like extra time between two goals. It's got to be up there.
So then, what about the Japan game? I think because
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, obviously, it's the first start we saw with Junior Ito, and I can go on and on about Junior Ito and like why he should be starting. Truthfully, it doesn't make sense to me why Ritsu Doan is the starting right wing back. We also saw his club teammate Keita Nakamura starting at left wing back. Um, Ao Tanaka starting instead of Hidemasa Morita, and then Ogawa, who's been starting up top, right, instead of Ayase Ueda, who's hurt. I'm a big fan of Koki Ogawa. So I love seeing him.
cool.
I think he brings a slightly different look. He's a bit more of a threat in terms of aerial duels and maybe not as clinical in front of goal, but I like what he brings to the striker position in the way that I also like how what like Kyogo Furuhashi brings. I know a lot of Celtic fans were hoping he would get a start in one of the two matches. I was too in a sense, but a brace from Magawa is really good. He's young. I think he's like I guess not super young, but he's like 26, 27. So like, he's in kind of his prime, early years of his prime as a striker and like it's a piece where you don't have Ueda available because of injury. I'd like to see the guy that we don't have a ton on because Ogawa hasn't played a ton for the national team. This is kind of the first year where he's been playing minutes for the national team consistently for him to kind of get minutes to see what he can do, and he proved it. A brace. That's you can't ask for much more
I don't know
out of
if
a striker.
I don't know if you want to get into the off the field antics, or if you want to skip that, it's up to you.
Uh,
Um, but my question to you was, well, now you're saying, okay, you've got Kokyoga was doing very well. Does that jeopardize Kyogo Furuhashi, who's already not getting much minutes under Moriyasu? Does that pretty much just put him as not like a third or even fourth choice striker? Because that's
Kyogo Furuhashi has never been a top choice
Mhm.
for Hajime Moriyasu. I don't think even if
Ogawa.
Furuhashi balled
Yeah,
out
yeah.
and Ogawa didn't, I don't think that changes it.
Exactly.
Ueda's
That's
still
what
the
I
number
was.
one,
Yeah, that's
and
what I was.
someone is going to be the number two. That's not Kyogo Furuhashi. I don't
Exactly.
know if it's like a personal beef that they have or what. I know he doesn't fit perfectly tactically because he's not the greatest in terms of pressing, and Hajime Moriyasu likes to press really aggressively and play a high line with that back three. But like, come on. Even when like Furuhashi was having the big year with Celtic a couple years ago, even then he wasn't favored.
hmm hmm
I mean, that guy, what did he score? He scored 35 goals for Celtic and wasn't the starting striker for the Japanese national team a couple years ago. I mean,
hmm
that should say enough about what we're seeing with Kyogo Furuhashi. Um, he's kind of the someone's injured, we'll bring him in option for Hajime Moriyasu, and I don't think that's going to change just because he performs well in a World Cup qualification window. Unfortunately,
So that pretty much wraps up the groups. We're gonna kind of go and do an overview of the groups, just a little brief chat. Who were the best teams, who were the worst teams, who were the most impressive. We're gonna talk about our players of I guess the match days and such. Also, I guess worthy to say is I think as things stand for the next window, I think there's only two teams that are able to qualify for the World Cup, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure about South Korea, but I know for a fact, I think Japan has to win their next game against Bahrain to qualify. They'll be the first team to qualify for the FIFA World Cup, right? And then followed by Iran, who they need to win against the UAE. And then I tweeted this out. I said they also need to win against Uzbekistan. Turns out I was actually wrong. So they need to win against the UAE and then just either get a point against Uzbekistan to then qualify. So they don't necessarily have to win, which can be good news because I mean, when's the last time we won against Uzbekistan? It's only 0-0 draws, 1-1 draws. So maybe that's good news. I don't know. But yeah, we'll now go on with our section of this whole overview of the groups. So yeah. All right, so now we're gonna head over to a sort of like group review, player review, and all that stuff. So I guess let's start with Group A, right? Going through every single nation. I mean, I think the winners of it has to be the UAE. I think they were amazing in terms of their results. I think I mean you can't ask for more than what they've done, right? 5 goals past Qatar is insane. um then the biggest losers of it, it's kind of tough because it's gonna have to be North Korea because they lost both games, but not in the sense of like they've been bad necessarily. It's just that the other teams were just a lot better. That's like the only way I can really put it. I don't know what you think about that.
yeah, I agree. I think you look at North Korea. They had that late PK that could have tied the match in the 85th minute that they missed against Uzbekistan. That changes the result from a 1-0 loss to a 1-1 draw if you make it, right? Assuming nothing else happens in the last 5 minutes of regulation and stoppage time. And the same goes with Iran. You went up, you went down 3-0, and you found a way to claw yourself back up to 3-2. You were a goal away. I'm pretty sure they hit the post. I remember them hitting the post on one of their shots. So that goes a couple inches your way, and all of a sudden you're leaving this group, you're leaving this round, hosting Iran and Uzbekistan with 2 draws rather than 2 losses. So I agree that it's not even from the sense of they played poorly. They um were the worst team this window. It's just like knowing how close they were to securing points, valuable points at that against the best teams right now in the group. That's gonna stink. That's gonna stink really bad.
But then again, a lot of people are going to argue that Qatar were probably the worst team, but at least they got a win against Uzbekistan, which is like the second best team in that group. But then again, a 5-0 loss is genuinely insane. Like based off of playing, I think they've been the worst side. But in terms of results, it logically is North Korea. So you can kind of argue it which one's the worst. But yeah, our opinion I think is shared here. It would be North Korea. Player of the like I guess in that group, the best players in that group for the past two games for me, man, I guess it has to be Fabio Lima from the UAE. I think he was really good. Joel Kojo, I think, was pretty decent as well. Trying to think maybe anyone in that Iranians. Oh, Taremi. I mean, yeah, he had that three assists against North Korea and scored a goal as well. I think. I mean, despite him, missing a penalty and scoring an own goal, but he he still played very well. I think you can't rule him out of that. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, is it really a shock that I also agree that it's Fabio Lima? 4 goals in that 5-0 win against Qatar, and then he also had a pair of assists in that 3-0 win against Kyrgyzstan. 6 goal contributions in 2 matches is yeah, that's gonna get you the man of the match days or the international window, whatever you want to call this, right? I think by far he was the best player, not just in Group A, but in all of AFC World Cup qualifications. So I think that's a no-brainer pick. Um, yeah, I don't think anyone's particularly close to that either.
For Group B, I think the biggest winners for Group B. It's still hard. It's still hard because it was a very evenly matched few games. I don't want to say Korea because a 1-1 draw against Palestine isn't ideal. I wouldn't count that as a win for them. Then again, the rest of the teams weren't particularly that great. I guess Iraq, they didn't lose any games. They were there. Um, Kuwait as well wasn't awful. But then Palestine did get a 1-1 draw against South Korea, so that's also something to consider. But then like the worst team out of that, I might be a little bit harsh, but Jordan, maybe. I don't know. They just again, it's not like they've been horrible. It's just they haven't been particularly too impressive. And I'm thinking about it like someone like Musa Al Tamari he hasn't done anything in these past few games. Not only this window, but the previous windows as well. So it's time for him to kind of step up. And as for like a best player, to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't have like a name in mind that particularly stood out. So I want to see what you think about this first.
Yeah, I will start by saying that I'll view this more as a best window, worst window, rather in the sense of like disappoint going over expectations, underperforming expectations. And in that sense, I have Iraq as the best of this window. You come in, you're facing 3 and 4, where I guess you were tied at when you came in with 2 and 3, 2 and 4. Uh, you draw against Jordan, which is fine, and then you get that important win against the who is sitting currently fourth, Oman. So you get 4 points in this window. You separate yourself against the teams that are competing against you for that automatic qualification spot. That's massive. And that it helps that Iraq went on to lose, or it went on to draw their next match, which is my loser of this round. You had to find a way. You had to find a way. Sorry, not for if you're Jordan, right? Sorry, Jordan is my loser. If you had to find a way in that second match against Kuwait at Kuwait to find a win, you just had to. You had to be able to keep up with Iraq in the table, and you didn't. And for me, because there isn't any other team that lost both matches or just continued to plummet, right? They have to be the most disappointing of this group, just from from that standpoint. Best player of this window. It's tough. It's very tough. Um, I was gonna give it to Ahmed Bazil, Fadil, the goalkeeper for Iraq, who had 2 clean sheets in those wins for who I consider to be the team that excelled the most this window. But even him, like he didn't record a ton of saves. He had 4 saves in the match against Jordan. Let me check the other match just so I'm getting the right stats. Against Oman, he had 2 saves. So 6 saves. That's not a crazy number. It's not an outrageous number. But if you're getting 2 clean sheets and your team's now firmly in second place. Firmly is a very loose word to use here, but if they're the team in second place right now for automatic qualification, that's good enough for me, especially when your team only scored 1 goal. I can't give it to an attacker. I just can't right now.
I
So
agree.
I'll give it to the goalkeeper.
Sure. Let's move on to Group C, which I think is going to be a lot more easier to discuss. I think the clear winners in this has to be Indonesia. I don't think I think they've been the winners of the whole sort of past few games, like the match days, right? I mean, recording such a huge win against Saudi Arabia is I mean, yeah, they lost 4-0 against Japan, but were they like no one was expecting them to play with against Japan, right? And them winning that against Saudi Arabia is a huge win because they're now literally in the race to be at the World Cup. Like they have a chance, which I think they were already written off in the beginning, right? If you want to base it off of results itself, then I guess it would be Japan, right? But it's not surprising. Uh, and I think the worst out of that team, and we're gonna both agree here, has to 100% without a doubt be Saudi Arabia. Just man, they've been very bad. Don't really want to go too in because but we can make a whole ass podcast on just how bad they've been. And I'm not trying to say this like in a bad way. It's just they haven't been up to par and it's so disappointing. It's so disappointing because they're not even a World Cup qualifying nation standard at the moment, I would say. And that's a very harsh thing to say, but you got completely outplayed by the what is I think like the 130th team in the FIFA rankings, which I know I shouldn't base myself too much on the FIFA rankings, but it gives you a good idea of what level it kind of is in some way. No, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable for Saudi Arabia. And as much as I'm, crying over Iran being wank, at least we're winning our games. Um, So yeah, and then my player of the match day for that group would be Marcelino Ferdinand. I think guy just dropped a masterclass, dropped a sexy ass celebration, cold ass celebration. That was really nice. But I think we're gonna agree on pretty much everything here, right? I don't think it's kind of pretty much obvious unless you want to go with Japan as the most impressive team. But
No, Japan's not the most impressive team. That was expected.
yeah.
That was easily expected. Especially with their form. Like it's not a surprise. It's nowhere near a surprise. Um, Part of me wants to give a shout out to Hassan of Bahrain for that brace against Australia. But yeah, it has to go to the winning effort as well for Indonesia, right, against Saudi Arabia. Ferdinand, what a performance for him, what a brace, what a celebration, as you said as well. Yeah, Saudi Arabia's been so disappointing. Indonesia, I think, is the team that I'll give the best team of the window to, despite their 4-0 loss. Um, Mainly because it's a win at home against Saudi Arabia. Like coming into this qualification window, if I told you, hey, Indonesia's gonna beat Saudi Arabia 2-0 at home, you would have called me insane. Everyone would have called me insane. No one would have believed that would happen. Maybe some Indonesian fans would have hope. And that's an absurd result. That's an absurdly good result.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has to go. It has to go to Indonesia. And Saudi Arabia now they've gone 4 straight matches without scoring a goal.
hmm hmm Do you? I mean, this is. Oh wait, before we go on to that conversation, I'm presuming for you, Marcelo Ferdinand was also the player of the match day for that group.
Yes, for sure.
So that moves on to my next point here is in except Japan. I don't think Japan is even worthy of being in that discussion. Do you think any of the big I guess you can say six teams in or again you're excluding Japan out of that, but in either of Iran, Australia, Korea, and Saudi Arabia, do you think any of those teams are going to continue struggling or well struggling or start to struggle in some way? Because the way I see Iran play is we're probably going to win our games and go through and all, but again, it's just not convincing wins. It's not what I want to see. I want to see more convincing football. We're better than what we're showing. It's so frustrating that we're not able to show how good we are because we've clearly shown it in the past. It's just so frustrating. Amir Khalenoy is just doesn't seem like he wants to learn from his mistakes. And like, listen, like, granted, like we're trying to kind of implement new players in the team, but it's just not the right players. Youngsters aren't being called up, and the ones that aren't playing. It's so weird that you've got Syed Sahizon doing so well in Europe, or Mohammad Javad Hosseini doing so well in Europe, and he's not even getting a single minute. I think the only youngster that got some minutes was, with the exception of Arya Yousefi, was I think it was Hossein Zadeh, and he played like 5 minutes. Like, what's the point? Another thing that I feel like no one's really speaking about is our right back situation, because this man right here, Sadel Mohanami, still hasn't been called up. I mean, I know he just came back from injury, but I think we're slowly seeing that we do need him back because he was so good in that Asian Cup before that injury. Part of me still thinks we would have won that Asian Cup had he had been playing because of that Rami Nazan mistake against Qatar. Anyways, um, but yeah, not good enough. And then Korea, I think they're still good. The quality is there. They just need to wake up. Really, I think that's their real issue. Maybe they're taking it too easy. I don't know. But then Saudi Arabia and Australia is where it gets interesting because both teams just it's just like a battle of who's worse, to be honest with you, which at this moment in time, Saudi Arabia is winning. But it's not looking good for any of them. Like we can imagine a world where these two might not make it to the World Cup, or one of them doesn't make it to the World Cup. Like it could be a possibility where these guys finish fifth and sixth. If China and Bahrain and Indonesia start taking themselves seriously, there might be a world where Saudi Arabia and Australia genuinely might not make it. What do you think, Kenta, about these teams?
Yeah.
Actually,
Iran,
I know you wanted to touch on Japan as well because you had some complaints. I think you pretty much agree with what I'm saying. I don't think there's anything else that you really want to add. Um,
yeah, Japan, with Japan, it's just an
yeah,
issue of like the certain players that are being played. I see like specifically with Ritsu Doan and Junya Ito, the two of them. I just don't understand for the life of me why Ritsu Doan continues to be the starter that he prefers. I get it. Like you go back to the 2022 World Cup and Doan was massive for them, right? Oh my gosh, is that a hoot? Yeah, but he was massive for them. He scored two important goals in that Germany match, the Spain match, and so I get the reason behind why he's favored. And Junya Ito obviously had some legal troubles, I guess, back home during the Asian Cup that left him out of the roster halfway through the tournament. But Junya Ito's just been so he fits the system better, I think, as a right wing back than Ritsu Doan. He still leads AFC World Cup qualification in assists with 9, despite only starting one of 6 matches in this group. One of six. One of six. That's just not. That's crazy that you still have lead all of AFC World Cup qualification in assists despite that. I feel like Leeds midfielder Al Tanaka should be starting more and getting more minutes than he has been. Um, I guess that's more of just me being upset that he's only started 2 matches when Morita started 4, and I feel like that should be a pretty even split among the two. I guess Morita started 5 because one of those matches Endo didn't start. So um, I guess I'm a slightly upset at the rotation there, but the results speak for themselves, so I can't be too mad. In terms of South Korea, I don't think they have any issues. I really don't. I think that Ulsan HD head coach, right? Hong comes in ahead of this window. After the Asian Cup, pardon me, and they look more cohesive as a unit. They're not as reliant on their star players to create chances and to score goals, despite their star players being the ones that have been doing that. They've been able to create chances throughout them. You look at like a player like Lee Kang-in, right? Like he's been a ghost this entire qualification round. Like I'm pretty sure he started every match, but I couldn't tell you. And he's been playing well for Paris Saint-Germain. Like what's going on there? No goals, 1 assist in 6 matches for a winger that starts for PSG. Like what's going on there, right? So you're not getting the performances that you expect out of Lee Kang-in. Hwang Hee-chan still hurt. He played like 2 matches and got hurt during AFC World Cup qualification. He's still not back, but he'll likely be back, assuming he doesn't get hurt again for March. So there's quality there. We know that. Um, I'm not overly concerned. They have one of the best defenders in the world, and you know, Kim and Jai on the back line. And obviously you have Sunny. So I'm not too concerned about South Korea. I think structurally they're a really sound team, and they have the star players that can take over in important matches as well. Iran, I've already touched on the whole issue, I think, with their mentality. Um, their inability to play a full 90 minutes. It feels like they always let go of the gas pedal 60 minutes in or after halftime. They're up 2-0, 3-0, and all of a sudden they just let oppositions come back. Whether that's just a mental mistake and conceding a penalty, giving up a red card, whatever that might be, right? You can't afford to do that. You're getting away with it now because you're playing other Asian teams that are significantly ranked lower than you and that don't have the quality to be able to capitalize on it the way they should. But you take that to the World Cup, you take that to other international competitions, and you're not gonna you're gonna pay for it. You're gonna pay for it. I'm gonna keep talking because you're muted.
Uh,
I'll briefly touch on Australia and Saudi Arabia then. They've just both been so bad, haven't they? They've just been so bad. You said there's a world where we see one of them not qualify for the World Cup. I think there's a world where they both don't qualify at this rate. They've been horrific, especially Saudi Arabia. 3 goals in 6 matches, not scoring in their last four. I'm sorry. That's just not remotely good enough for the Saudi Arabian team that has so much quality. You've seen how much their domestic league has gotten better with the money that they've put into it, right? Over the last couple of years. You can't afford to be taking a step back in the national teams in the national team stage. It just baffles me how this is happening. Australia, on the other hand, they've just been a mess of their own that I'm not gonna try to dive deep into because I don't want this podcast to take 4 years. Um, but yeah, it's really concerning. And then you see these younger teams like Indonesia with their dual nats, right? You see China getting some gritty results, and you're seeing Bahrain get some results as well. And it makes me wonder, honestly, like, could they make some noise? And I really do think they could.
we're just gonna have to wait and see. So that rounds up the qualification round. It was a crazy qualification round, might I add. Definitely more entertaining than in previous ones. Let's move on to some AFC Champions League Elite and AFC Champions League 2. Have we covered the Challenge League, or haven't we? I think we have. I don't remember. But I'll let Kenta talk a little bit about this. We're gonna like kind of go we're just gonna like shoot our way through it basically.
Yeah, so last time Arya wasn't here, Erfan was here. I'm the only, can you believe that? I'm the only one that's been on both shows. We didn't touch on match day 4 of 2, but or match day 3 on AFC Elite or AFC Champions League 2, pardon here. But we'll start with the Elite. Yeah, I'm looking at the table right now, and there aren't a ton of surprises, especially after what we covered after match day 3. Um, just quickly going over the results, we'll start with the East here. Central Coast and Shenhua tied 2-2. Vissel Kobe won 2-0 against Gwangju at home. Kawasaki Frontale won 3-1 at home against Port FC. JDT smashed Ulsan at home 3-0. And then Pohang Steelers won 4-2 at home. And then Yokohama F. Marinos destroyed Buriram 5-0 in Yokohama, Japan.
Let me just touch on this. I think GDT destroying Ulsan AG, that's a pretty big result, man. Uh I mean, Ulsan AG haven't been the quote unquote best, but you're top of the you're topping your league,
haven't
man.
haven't been the best. That's a light way to put it. They haven't scored a goal in 4 matches. They
Yeah,
have a
but
negative
no, no, no.
10 goal differential.
Do you want me
I'm
to
sorry. They've
do you want me to
they're
do the
no wins, no draws, 4 losses, 10 goals conceded, no goals scored. I'm sorry. That is not a this is just the norm for this Ulsan HD side, right? Like ever since Hong left, they've been fine
oh,
in K League, that's fine. But
I'm
in
just
AFC Champions League Elite, they've been horrible.
I'm just
They've been
trying to
atrocious.
I'm trying to be nice, man. Like Come on.
There's
And
nothing
by the
nice
way,
to
by the
be
way,
about.
by the
They
way, by the
haven't
wait, wait,
scored
wait,
a
wait,
goal
wait,
in
wait, wait.
4 matches, and
Okay.
they've conceded 10, and they've lost all 4 matches. There's nothing nice to say about that.
Well, listen, all Sun HD fans, if you're watching this, I tried being nice. Kenta just doesn't like you guys. That's just it. Thank God Erfan isn't here to make his stupid joke. Oh,
Oh,
that's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, I mean, it's just yeah, like you said, I think the Japanese sides have got a lot to be proud of. I think all three teams won, right? So that's pretty cool
they
for.
did, and that's after starting their first
Wait,
match. They all
we just completely went over Al Nasser just destroying the champions.
yeah.
I
We
mean,
started with
it's
the
just
East,
like damn, man. Oh,
so we can
sorry
go to the
about that,
West.
boys. Sorry about that. I thought you said it's okay. Whatever. Well, I mean, we're on the topic of it now, so we'll just say it, right? 5-1, Al Nasser, Al Ain. What a freaking result, man. That's a crazy result. Does that mean the Al Ain hype train is pretty much kind of over, or what are we saying here, Kenta?
After one match, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, okay. Well, I guess they've also been poor, but they have not been bad as poor as Ulsan HD. But I'm looking at their score. They've scored 18 goals and conceded 15. They've conceded 15 goals. So maybe it's not that surprising that they conceded 5 to Al Nassr because they still conceded 10 in 3 matches before that. Yeah, it was just Ronaldo had a goal. Uh, Talisca had a brace. It was not pretty. It's
Yeah, I
very
mean,
one-sided.
I kind of said the Al Ain hype train was over because they're not doing well in the league at all. I think they're like eighth, so I don't know. It's just not the same team that we were watching last season. For the other results, what was it? Porto Tour, I think, winning or losing, sorry, to Al Rayyan 1-0. And then it's the whole like Persepolis Al Hilal teams, right? So Al Hilal winning 3-0 against Istiklal. Again, Irfan's not here to give his opinion. I'm sure he has a lot to say. But I mean, it's still a lot to be fair. They're going through like this whole managerial change. They've got a new manager, doesn't really have his team set up. Persepolis continue to be disappointing in the Champions League. 1-1 against Al Kharafa. I don't know what's going on with Persepolis because yeah, they're not doing well. Al Ali winning 5-1 against Al Shorta. Pretty good result. And then Al Sad doing 1-1 against Al Wasl. And I'm a little bit not disappointed in Al Sad, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, they won against both Iranian sides, which isn't necessarily a huge huge achievement, but I don't know, man. It that game against Al Wasl was just weird. And I'm not saying they're like in trouble or anything, but it was just a weird game. I don't know. I didn't really feel like they were all there.
Yeah. Outside, I mean, they had clearly the better chances and the
Yeah.
quantity of chances, and they just. I mean, also, I think red card was super late, so I don't think it impacted the result a ton. I mean, that's different if it's early in the match. Um, but you can see the goal in the first half and find an equalizer. You'd like to see this team find a winner in the second half.
And that
But
just didn't
it,
happen. Yeah.
it just didn't. Yeah, I thought we're a bit more defensively minded in the second half, which makes sense. You're at home, you went up a
Hmm.
goal.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I guess the other one is I guess Al Hilal, Alexander Mitrovic with a hat trick in that match. Despite not playing great for his national team, and
Yeah.
that's a whole different conversation that we had. But yeah, hat trick for him. Um, yeah, no real surprise that Al Hilal won. I know has to go with Erfan, but I don't think it's a surprise that Al Hilal won at home. I don't think we should be shocked by that result in really any means.
Yeah. Moving on to ACL 2. Um, yeah, I'll let you take care of this whole stuff.
Oh boy. All right. I'm just going to go through the table. I think this is the easiest way to go. We have 2 match days that we didn't cover. That is with the amount of groups that's here, right? And 2 matches in each match day and 2 matches per group. Two match days total, right? So that's 4 matches for 8 groups. That's 32 matches. I'm not going to try to go through 32 matches worth of content here. So
Yeah.
we're just going to go through the standings. We'll talk about some matches that caught my eye because I truthfully haven't watched all the ACL 2 matches. So I'll tell you about some of the matches that caught my eye and we'll kind of discuss. Group A, obviously, Mohun Bagan withdrew from the tournament. So there's only 3 teams, 2 teams qualifying. Traktor with 3 matches played has 9 points. Alawakra with 2 matches played with 3 points, and Ravshan with 3 matches played and 0 points with negative 10 goal differential. It kind of feels like we know what 2 teams are going to qualify at this point. Group B. We'll just keep moving on. Al Tawoun, 4 matches played, 9 points. Al Khalidia, yeah. 4 matches played, 9 points. So two teams with 9 points. And then you have Al Jawiya with 6 points on 4 matches. And then with 0 points. There's a lot of 0 points in ACL too that you'll start to notice here.
I mean,
Alto
you can you
Nasir
can you can sort of cut you off
with
there. You can
zero.
kind of see that there's like some gaps between a few teams and others. Now, whether that's due to how the whole, I guess, league or competition is set up, I don't know, but it's definitely kind of weird that there's a lot of teams on 0 points, and it shouldn't really be the case. Perhaps those teams go back to the Challenge League or something, but then again, I feel like they would be too good for the Challenge League. It's kind of like, okay, well, where do these teams go from there? But
Yeah, I will say that I do think ACL2 would benefit from the Europa League setup or the Conference League setup that they have, where it's league play, just so that you have teams in that pot four kind of group playing against each other instead of consistently playing against pot one and pot two teams, because that's what we're seeing, where like every group has a team that's either got 0 points or like 2 points for the most part, and there's just too much of a gap in quality at times, where it's unfair to the teams that that made it to this competition. They should be playing some teams at the level of their competition in my eyes. We'll keep going here. Group C, Al Wedat with 10 points and 4 matches played. These are all just 4 matches played. I don't know. I keep repeating myself. Al Sharjah with 7 points. Sepan with 6, and Istiklol with 0. That's a Tajikistan club. Uh, yeah, another 0 point team. Group D, Al Hussein with 9 points, Shabal Al Alil with 7 points, Nasaf with 4, and Al Kuwait with 2. And then you have Group E, the group I've been paying most attention for, unsurprisingly as a Japanese person. Sanfrecce Hiroshima with 12 points, Sydney FC with 6 points, Eastern SC with 3 points, and Kaya with 3 points. Group F, Port FC with 9 points, Lion City Sailors with 7 points, Persib with 4 points, and Zhejiang with 3. Group G, Bangkok United with 10 points, Namding with 8 points, Tampine Rovers with 4, and Liman with 0. And then finally in Group H, Jeonbuk with 9 points, Selagor FC with 7 points, Wangdong United with 5 points, and DH Cebu FC with 1 point in the group stage so far.
yeah, before we move on to other things, real quickly, just gonna mention Al Ain, who played in the Intercontinental Cup. Unfortunately, they lost their game, so they're out. Yeah, that's literally it. Just had to mention it there. We're gonna be talking about the Under-17 Asian Cup qualifying round, not round, but like the teams to qualify for the 2025 U17 Asian Cup. I'll just go through the teams that qualify. We're not going to go through the groups and all that. That'll just take way too long. So Saudi Arabia, obviously, they go through because they're the hosts. We've got North Korea, who were Group A winners. Yep, they went above Iran. We'll get to that in a second. Afghanistan were Group B winners. They're going through. South Korea were Group C winners. Thailand Group D. Uzbekistan Group E. Japan Group F. And Australia Group G. UAE were Group H winners. Yemen were Group I winners. There's a lot of groups here, and Tajikistan were Group J winners. So a lot of like groups here to cover. But then you've got the best runner-ups. You notice there's a team that hasn't made it here, and that's Iran. But we're gonna get through it in a second. So there's 5 runner-ups that get through. China was one of them. Vietnam was one of them. Indonesia was one of them, and Iran somehow made it. They weren't actually even supposed to be up there. They made it because I don't remember. A team lost to another team, and that made Iran go up. It was something like that. And Oman were fifth best runner-ups. Yeah. I don't really agree with the way these groups are made. I don't understand why only a team per group is automatic. Like it's just weird. That shouldn't be the case where the second best team is penalized. But whatever. I guess that's just the way it goes. They should change it for the future because It's not fair, but yeah, the AFC they're not changing that at all, are they? Moving on now to the under 17 World Cup, FIFA World Cup, which happened a few weeks ago, from October 15th to November 2nd. North Korea again won another World Cup. That's insane. And they've won it again, defeating Spain on penalties 4-3. I think they beat the USA in the process. I think. I mean, if we're gonna go for the Asian sides, I think South Korea were dead last in their group with only 1 point, with a -10 goal difference. North Korea with a +10 goal difference on 9 points above England, which I think is sick. Japan topping their group, seven points. And I think that's it, right? There's only four groups. So not really much else to add, but I mean, hey, it's fantastic the fact that we got another Asian side winning the World Cup. I think they just came off a under 20 World Cup, right? They won that one. Now they're winning the under 17 one just a few weeks later. I think that's just it's just insane. But that's pretty much it. I'll let Kenta have the final words, and we're gonna wrap this up.
Yeah, I'll touch briefly on that U17 World Cup. Obviously, it's North Korea dominant, dominant. And like even in the group stage, they beat England 4-0. And South Korea, I know they ended up playing horribly, but their first match, I think they drew against Colombia. So I was watching, I was like, okay. And then they lost 5-0 to Spain. And then they lost 5-0 to the US, and it just went downhill very, very quickly. And then Japan, of course, very close matches. They barely beat Brazil 2-1, and then they beat Zambia 4-1. They also had a draw against Poland early on the first match day, enough for them to move on into the knockout stage, where Japan lost in penalties to England. And then, of course, North Korea, as we know, went on. They beat Poland, they beat England, and then they won against Spain on penalties. Um, they conceded one goal the entire tournament. That was in the final.
Yeah,
That's impressive.
that's very, very impressive. So yeah, like I even made a video on this on my own like main channel of like how North Korean football is slowly advancing. And I know like the men's version is like I said, like yes, they're dead last in their group, but they're generally like not a bad side. It's just they could be doing a lot better if they were, you know, finishing their penalties and stuff. Like they could be at a lot better position than they are now. They're not an awful team, and maybe that's a potential like future AFC team to watch out. Sort of like how
Oh,
Uzbekistan.
oh, for sure. I mean, like you touched on this briefly. North Korea missed three penalties, three separate matches, right? Two of those matches they lost by one goal, and then one match they drew. So if they would have converted all three penalties and nothing else changed, which of course is a massive if, they win that one match and then they draw two matches. That's four extra points that they drop. They have 2 points in six matches. They would be sitting at six.
Yeah,
That changes
everything.
everything.
Yeah, I can't believe we're like hyping up North Korea here. My country would be proud. But anyways, guys, I'm kidding. Guys, I'm kidding. This is a joke. Don't come from my head. I'm kidding. It's a joke. Before someone talks about this seriously, this is a joke. I'm kidding. All right. See this national team kit right here? All right. It's a joke. It's a
Arya's
joke.
not joking.
I'm
Arya's not
clearly
joking.
joking.
He's not joking.
And
It's very serious.
I want to give a special shout out to the Ulsan HD fans because Kenta absolutely hates your guts.
I
Uh,
don't hate the
yeah,
fans.
yeah,
Look,
yeah,
when your
yeah,
team in four matches can't
yeah,
score
yeah,
a goal and concedes 10 and loses all four
yeah,
matches,
yeah,
I'm going to talk badly about your team.
yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
the only team in ACL Elite to not score a goal.
See this? Like this is just hate right
And
there.
they're top of K League. What am I supposed to expect out of that? What am I supposed to draw? Because I predicted them to like be top two, top three, and all of the East.
Yeah.
Like I had them as heavy favorites, and then they go out and drop four stinkers and they can't score a goal. Come on, man. I
All right.
expected more from you, Ulsan HD. I expected more.
All right. Well, yeah. That wraps up this episode. We're gonna have a last episode coming out in December. It's gonna be like a kind of like a wrap up of the year. We're gonna be talking about a lot of stuff. To be honest, not I can't really list them off the top of my head. But it'll be a very interesting episode. Hopefully, you guys will tune in. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Again, thank you, Kenta, for being co-host of this wonderful podcast. We've talked a lot. Um, any last words?
Yeah, if you guys have any topics you want us to cover in that final episode, we're still kind of brainstorming what that final episode looks like for the year, I'm pretty sure. So if you have like burning questions you want us to ask or to answer, fire away.
Why
Mention
does
us on social media, do
why does
anything you
Kenta
want.
hate Ulsan HD? That would be my question. No, but yeah.
I'll
Make
buy
sure.
an Ulsan HD kit if enough people like this video.
Oh God. Oh
Yeah,
God.
I will buy one. I don't know how I'm gonna source it, but I will buy one.
So
So
make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, and all that stuff. We're also planning to be a lot more active on our YouTube channels and as well as TikTok. That's going to be something we're gonna start posting up. So stay tuned on our social medias. We got tons of fun stuff to come out in the next few weeks. And yeah, Kai Havertz is the best player in the world. Have a great day. Bye bye.